Hey everyone! Before we dive in, we want to give a big shout out to TACA, the Arts Community Alliance, and Moody Fund for the Arts. This season of Dance Behind the Screen podcast is powered in part by their support. Because of them, you're getting free episodes wherever you listen, full video interviews on YouTube, and our amazing guests receive an artist stipend. If you love what we do and want to support the work, head over to kNOwBOXdance.com. All right, let's get into it.
kNOwBOX Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production, and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념이란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Welcome to Dance Behind the Screen, where dance, technology, and creativity converge. I'm your host, Martheya, and in today's episode, it's going to be a compelling dive into how emotional nuance, artistic leadership, and choreographic clarity intersect on and off the screen. Our guest today is Margot Gelber, a choreographer, filmmaker, and performer whose work explores the delicate balance between vulnerability and strength. With work that spans live performance and film, Margot continues to create deeply honest and emotionally resonant art that lingers long after it ends. Margot, welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you so much.
Let's dive right in. Your creative work moves between dance and film. And in your film, If I Were You, that was an official selection for the kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival and an award winner, there's this palpable emotional tension between intimacy and independence. And so I'd love it if you could talk about your film and how you lead projects that are so intimate.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me and thank you for including me in the festival this year. It was an honor to be a part of it and also so exciting to win an award there with you guys. Yeah, I think for me in this film in particular, I worked with a lot of people I've known for a long time, which was really exciting and rare to get so many of those people together, even though there were only a handful of us. It still felt like an opportunity to have a slightly bigger team than some past productions. And I really just try to listen to what my collaborators want and how they feel and where they think the story should go and how we can get there together. I think with something like film, and especially this film, there were many steps along the way. Obviously, you have pre-production, production, post-production, and then eventually finding the location, deciding what served the story the best, because there is the film that exists in your head, and then you have to take it off the stage in your head and put it out into the world and find this place that exists in your mind. And so I had so much guidance and input from so many people who are involved. My cinematographer, David Markin, was really important in every single step of the way, but especially from he was maybe one of my very first phone calls, but initial sort of ideas and how to make everything happen. And I think just having the idea, presenting it to people, and then really trusting your collaborators and sort of handing it over so everyone can bring it to life together helps a lot when you're trying to create intimacy in anything. It's all trust and communication. And I have a lot of respect for the people I was working for and with in this capacity. So, yeah.
And that definitely resonates. As a viewer experiencing the film on the other side, you can definitely sense the thoughtfulness and intentionality behind the work that you were all creating together. This is Dance Behind the Screen, where technology, strategy, and creativity collide. I thought it'd be really cool for our listeners, who many of which are either filmmakers already or aspiring makers or independent artists, to kind of really dive deep into the strategic planning process for creating a film. We can use If I Were You as an example. You mentioned you have this like idea in your head and it's so clear and it's in the stage in your head, and then you have to bring that into reality. And a lot of times I think you talked about the most important part are who are the people to put in place to help make that an actual reality. So I'd love to kind of go step by step. Like, what is your strategy? Where does it start? So you have the idea in your head, and then what? Are you first finding the people? Are you conducting interviews? Are you posting like open calls? Well, like go with us on that journey. How do they bring their visions to reality?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good question. I'll say the first thing I'll say about it is that this was my first film, my first dance film.
Oh, I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, I've been creating work for the stage for the last 10 years, et cetera, but this is my first film.
Well, congratulations.
So, yeah. And I had a lot of help. Basically, one of my very good friends, David, my cinematographer, we had talked about making something together. And so I had this idea. So I called David and I was like, I had this idea. And he's like, let's make it happen. Initially, I started with my idea. I had somebody in mind I wanted to work with to shoot it. He's incredibly talented. For people that maybe don't know those types of filmmakers or people connected with that world, I think a lot of people are actually very interested in dance. So I think, maybe going online and seeing who has shot other things, finding ways to just contact them and sort of putting things out into the world that way. I know that can be scary, but I think creative people are always looking for collaborators and for opportunities. And if you hear no, you can always reach out to somebody else, right? But finding a lot of dance films are made now. So, and everyone like posts these long lists of credits, right? So there are a lot of people who are interested in this. And so I think for people who want to, that's a sort of a good entry point, maybe.
And on that note, did you have like a budget already set aside for this project, or were you reaching out?
I did a Kickstarter. I really started with just like, what is the idea and why does it need to be a film? Like throughout this process, because again, this was like a first step into dance film for me. Like, why does a dance need to be a film? And so I kept asking myself that like throughout this process. I really wanted to have like intention and artistic clarity and know that I had people who are going to be involved before. But I think your budget has to happen early on. I did a Kickstarter for this project and that it was great. It went really well. I think crowdfunding is a good way to go. I know a lot of people in dance film, even though funding is challenging right now, get a lot of grants. Like there are a lot of ways to go. I think making dance film can be expensive. And so you have to be really creative in that capacity. And also flexible for sure. And yeah, giving yourself enough time to make it all work. And this is different from dance. When there's expensive equipment involved, there's a lot of insurance.
If you're comfortable with sharing, I'd love to hear more about like your Kickstarter process. I think that could be really useful for artists listening who, like I said, might not be affiliated with like a nonprofit or something, and they're more operating as an independent artist. Like, how did you structure that? And did you find great success? And if you don't mind sharing, like, how much money were you able to raise?
We raised about $6,000.
Congrats.
Thank you. And yeah, it was a push, but it went really well. I made sort of like a schedule of posting and sharing, creating like mail lists and all these things, and then giving yourself a timeline so it doesn't go on forever. And so other people have a timeline too, because that really matters. If people think that they have sort of indefinite
They don't.
opportunity, there is a bit of an algorithm to that. And getting your friends, people in the community to also share your Kickstarter is great. And just, I think, having really clear language around what your project is, I think is really important when it comes to fundraising, because when it comes to dance, it can be hard to sort of talk concretely about
Yeah.
movement.
Yes.
And so even if you sort of feel like maybe you're condensing your ideas, I think it's really important to create structure when you're trying to get people to give you money for a project
Mhm.
in
Oh,
terms
certainly.
of language.
Certainly. I think it's such a challenge, especially I feel like from an academic background too. And I don't know if you've struggled with this. When we're writing grants, it's like we seem to almost like make our idea even more complicated in words
For
than
sure. Yeah.
maybe it really
Yeah.
actually is.
Yeah. And I think not being afraid to be like simple, and maybe even sometimes you feel like you're narrowing yourself a little bit. I think it's okay in order to be clear. I think people appreciate that, and it will ultimately help the idea. But yeah, I think also something that's great about crowdfunding is that if you can reach a lot of people. So it's not, you don't need huge donations necessarily. So yeah, it was, we sort of started with the idea, reached out to a collaborator of mine, a friend, and then I had ideas about, well, I worked. So the dancers are two of my closest friends. And so, making sure that they were on board, setting up rehearsals, getting everybody's schedules together, that's not easy. And then, location scouting, seeing where you want to film and being, practical about where you're going to film. But in terms of sort of like project management, I would say that we talked a lot about having a location where we weren't going to get interrupted. So like sometimes, yeah, being really practical about where you're going to shoot and what that is going to look like.
Definitely. And especially with dance, safety is such an important thing.
Yeah, I was with this particular idea, for those that haven't seen the film, it really revolves around this idea of being sort of like backed up to a ledge, and so that, I really wanted everyone to be safe, obviously. Because we were looking really hard for somewhere that had sort of a drop off, like a precipice, but wasn't going to be a terrifying endeavor for everybody involved. So, yes, safety number one.
And so then after, you're managing this project, you've
Mhm.
already gotten all the content, everything like that. How do you think about promoting and marketing your project? And I'd love to hear like your thoughts and planning around that.
Yeah, we sort of took it in stride on this one. I learned some things that maybe I would apply to the next one. I think you sort of have to take every project as they come and see what the project sort of needs. This one in particular, the post-production took almost a year, maybe 6 months. You have to give yourself time in that regard. And then we made a trailer, a really sort of punchy trailer. I started making lists of all the festivals that I thought I was right for, I was interested, and we went for some things that we didn't end up getting, which you should do. And just, I think, putting your work on social media, obviously, I think this is one of the reasons that dance film has the legs that it has, is because we have this different sort of medium now for people, for your work to be out there. But yeah, making sure as many people see it as you can get to in whatever way that means. I know that's like really general, but This film particularly was shown in like 6 different countries, maybe more. And I think applying broadly so it can really get in front of audiences and people can see your work and get familiar with the story and what you're doing. So just putting it out. And even if you think it's a stretch, like go for it. I also think, you have to budget for applying to festivals. That is a thing. Like if somebody's working on a project, it costs money to apply to these festivals, which is a reality. So factoring that in early on, I think is a good idea as well.
What do you look for when you apply your works to festivals?
Yeah, I think it was pretty broad. Things that, because dance film is so specific, I think definitely dance film festivals, of course, and also festivals that weren't dance specific. Art film festivals. A lot of festivals talk about wanting to expand the genre, etc., because it still falls under film, but it depends on the festival as to what they're looking for, what that means. I did get a lot of yes, which is amazing. I also heard a lot of no. And I think that even some of the places that were a stretch because they weren't geared toward dance seemed very interested in it. And we're just like, we don't really know what to do with this, which is great because I think it's good for dance. I think it's good for film.
That's really interesting. I think it's like to us, I guess, as dancers, it doesn't feel like a new genre per se at this point, especially in this, I don't know if we could call it like a post-COVID times. I know, especially during COVID, it really popularized dance film in a different kind of way. But I do know that, like you were saying, a lot of more traditional film festivals still don't have necessarily like a dance film category. So it's really interesting to think about it in that sense.
And maybe they will.
We have ideas.
I think a lot of feature films now are using more dance and more movement to tell stories. So I do think it's brewing, maybe, but we'll see.
I agree. And I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
For all of us artists out there.
For sure.
Well, Margot, I'm curious if there are any emerging technologies like obviously AI or immersive experiences or things like that that you're interested in or want to explore, or maybe there's some trends with emerging technologies that you think are here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them are here to stay. I think they're changing like so many corners and aspects of our lives artistically as well. I'm definitely interested in immersive performance experiences. I think that has been around for a while now and still has a lot to be discovered in terms of how that works for performance, I would say. I think they've used that a lot sort of like in the visual art world to make it more immersive, but I think it's a great opportunity for dance. AI is really interesting. And I know people have a lot of ideas about it. I personally feel like anything is how you use it. So I'm definitely interested to see how it will come into play.
Me too. Especially, I feel like when we first started the podcast, this is season 7. And like in the first couple seasons, our conversations were really centered around social media. And some of them were even before TikTok and things like that. And now it's interesting to see kind of similar reactions and responses, but now about AI. Like you said, it's all a tool and it's how you use it. One thing at kNOwBOX Dance we're really trying to emphasize is it is a tool to emphasize dance as an art form, to enhance the experience, but not to replace that embodied experience of movement and dancing.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm really curious when it comes to creating dance for film, how do you assess the technology you're using, whether it be the camera, editing platforms, things like that? You have drones, like different technological things. Like, how do you assess what's right for the project? And maybe not just dance film, even if you're creating works for the stage as well.
Yeah. So I personally, when it comes to those technical elements, especially in film, I trust the people I'm working with. A lot of that is, what do the people that are in charge of that aspect, what did they say? What do they want? What do they think? And then, like, what's in the budget? So like in my film, If I Were You, the opening shot, the camera's underneath the dancers. And so our cinematographer, David, built this entire rig so he could shoot from underneath them. It was the first thing we shot. It was very exciting. Of course, we found out, like, we had to have people holding the dancers by their waist in order to get, for them to be able to successfully do the choreography, which is another thing that is like so exciting about dance film, is that things become possible that aren't possible on a stage.
That movie magic.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, I think in terms of, like, technology is not, I'm interested in it and how it can serve storytelling, but it's certainly not my area of expertise. But I want anything that's going to enhance the story and the viewer's experience, et cetera. Like, our composer on this project, Sammy Friedman, is amazing. And, we talked a lot about the sound quality. And so, we mastered the soundtrack. The film, and she won an award from Cinedanza for the soundtrack. And I think, we talked a lot about, no, like, let's master it with the clearest quality that there can be, because I think all of that really contributes to the audience's experience. And the more clarity there can be in terms of, like, visuals and sound, I think the more immersive it can be. Yeah, which is exciting. But I think it also, like, depends on your budget. Like, drones are great. It's all good. And bells and whistles are cool, but it should all serve the story.
And storytelling seems to be so central to the work that you're creating. And I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper into that. Meaning, like, how do you think about the story? You picture this story in your head, this idea, but do you write a screenplay? Like, I'm curious, how do you communicate that story to people that aren't you?
So maybe my collaborators, we talk a lot, ask a lot of questions. I try to be really simple at first. This piece primarily was about, and it depends on the work, obviously. This piece was, I wanted a lot of repetition,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted it to really, I wanted the location to serve as a character. Because to me, that's one of the reasons for making dance film. It doesn't necessarily need to be a film where it is being shot and how it's being shot don't add to what is being said or told, right? So yeah, I think that it's it's I was really simple and clear, and I try to be really direct with the people I'm working with too. And then once people understand, you have to trust your collaborators. And the story, first of all, tells you what it needs. And once you've gathered up people that you trust and you've explained it to them, you can be like, what do you guys think? What needs to happen now? And, like, I do that a lot because I trust the people I'm working with. And yeah, it's more fun that way.
Mm-hmm. And it takes the pressure off too. I mean, it truly feels like a collaboration when
Yeah.
when you're listening to the people that you're working with, and it might surprise you too, the direction it might go.
Yeah. A lot of my collaborators are smarter and more creative than I am. So I always recommend collaborating with people who are smarter, more creative than you.
That is hilarious. I'm going to use that.
Advice.
I love that. You're listening to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. Let's explore the future of dance together. So I guess for those who are emerging filmmakers or filmmakers right now, what advice do you have for them on navigating this field of dance and film?
Yeah. I think don't let the limitations deter you. To me, that's really where creativity thrives. Here are the limitations, but those don't have to define me. What can I do? And if that means having a smaller cast or maybe having one less camera, just make it work.
Mhm.
Answer the phone.
That's so great. That's really great. Because I feel like sometimes as an artist, it feels like just to like make the art and like getting it out is so hard, especially when you want to do it the right way. You want to make sure you're
Mhm.
paying everyone something that they're worth. They're worth a lot of money and you
Of course.
understand the
Yeah.
value. So it can be
Yeah,
so daunting to just get started and to
for
just do
sure.
it.
Yeah. And I think I also really believe in obviously paying everyone. And the reality is, a lot of times with artistic projects, people do not get paid what they're worth, but making an attempt, period, is important. And sometimes, yeah, maybe it needs to be smaller so people can have more money, or just being really generous and really open and direct too, of saying, like, here's what I can offer you. And I'm sorry it's not more. And I would also like it to be more. And is there some another way I could make this worth your time? I think showing that intention, effort, and care is really important, and people will respond to it and they'll respect it.
I totally relate to that. I have visions for evening length work and it's like 30 people, 30 dancers. Then
Mhm.
it's like you get the budget. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have four. Here's what I can
Yeah.
offer you. Maybe all these different media assets and photos and videos that you can use, or just like different,
Mhm.
trying to be creative with what you can also, in addition to money, because of course that's what really
Right.
matters.
Or even saying, like, okay, this is what I have to offer. How much of your time can you give me given
Mhm.
those constraints? Because if you respect their schedule, it's another way to go about it too.
Definitely, especially because time is really such a currency at this point. All of us being
Yeah.
infiltrated with emails and messages. It's just constant.
Yeah. They want to create and compensate them and also give them space to be creative, I think is important.
What creative projects are you currently working on?
Yeah. I'm working on a new live work. So that's exciting. We'll see what happens with that. And then I'm currently editing some footage for a potential other, we're not sure if it's a film, we're not sure what it is yet, but
I love
we're
it.
working on that. It's very exciting. But and then I'm planning to shoot another film hopefully in the next year. So yeah, there's sort of like a lot going on. It doesn't have like a ton of shape right now, which I'm also trying to be a bit more open about. So there's a lot sort of in the mix, but I'm excited to see what sort of shape it all takes. I think as I've gotten older as a creator, sometimes it has become harder to trust the process, I
Mhm.
think,
Mhm.
because you feel like you need to continue to sort of push things along and et cetera. But I'm sort of trying to have like a renaissance back into maybe like more of the process oriented mind I had in my training, where I was just like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. I also had a solo I created a few years ago. It was made its New York premiere at the 92nd Street Y in May. So that was exciting as part of their,
Congratulations.
thank you, future dance festival. So yeah, things happening.
That's very exciting. I can totally relate to the kind of recentering around process orientation. I think it's so easy to be so like product oriented.
Mm,
Like what's next? And I'm constantly talking with Raina, who's on the kNOwBOX dance team, and we create works together about like, well, maybe this can take us a few years to create, our next work. Like, we don't need to be producing something every few months.
That was one thing that was very exciting for me about making this film and a film is I think, do my best work when I have a lot of time to just absorb it and pick at it and develop it, basically. What's exciting about film is your dancers aren't standing there, they're on a screen. So you can toil endlessly. And we really took our time with it. And it was, since I got out of school, I haven't had a year to work on a piece of work. So that was very exciting and cool. It taught me a lot about like, okay, no, I'm going to slow down and develop things because it's how I want to work.
And it's more sustainable too.
Yeah. And you can also get like something that was, and I say this for like young filmmakers too, dance filmmakers, is you can turn live work into film. You can turn film into live work. We took If I Were You to a festival, and Jesse and Marley, my beautiful dancers, we performed it on a statue.
Nice.
Around a statue. So it's like a site-specific work. And then they performed it with a full orchestra on a stage. So that was really cool. So we were able to get a lot out of this piece.
Well, Margot, our tagline here at kNOwBOX Dance is say no to the box and yes to the future of dance. How do you say no to the box and yes to the future of dance?
How do I say no to the box? I sort of started, dance in the culture. We have this like idea that starting high school is starting late, but I sort of started like, I didn't start dancing when I was like really, really young. I started a little bit later. And so I think I was a gymnast before that. And then so there always was or is this part of me that is not like fully conditioned as like I am a dancer or what I have those parts of me. But so I think
it's probably a blessing.
It's really interesting. I think in some moments I felt like maybe a bit of an outsider in some way. And then in some ways, I think it can help a lot because you have maybe a different frame in your mind for certain things. We have to step outside of it and question the constructs, basically, in my response to the box.
It's great.
Flash 4.
So now it's time for our Flash 4 segment. This is where we ask all our guests 4 questions in a flash. Are you ready?
Yeah.
If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
Just absorb as much as you can from wherever you can. Dancing Opportunities is a great website for festivals.
What was the first dance you saw?
Okay, so I don't remember the first dance I saw, but the first piece I saw that made like a huge impression on me was Decadence by Ohad Nahareen.
Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world?
Yes and no.
What is your favorite social media platform?
I use Instagram the most. That's what I use the most.
Love it. Well, Margot, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. I loved how we dove so much into talking about your process and all the exciting things that come from dance and film. I know our listeners will be grateful for your advice and hearing about your experiences. How can our listeners stay connected with you and what you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is Gelber. I don't even know her. Or you can just put in Margot Gelber. I have a website, margotgelber.com. You can send me an email. You can message me through my website. Just write to me and I'd be happy to chat with you.
Well, thanks for coming on our show, Margot. And to our listeners, be sure to check out the show notes where we'll have everything linked out. And you can stay connected with Margot there. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And as always, keep dancing beyond the screen. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. Keep dancing, keep innovating. See you next time.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at kNOwBOX Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.